Imagine finding an ancient stone buried in the sands of time. Its surface, etched and painted with mysterious letters, carries a shocking message. In 3 days, live. These words seem familiar to us, right? A prophecy fulfilled by Jesus. But it wasn't Jesus this stone was talking about. It was someone else, a Messiah who lived before him. He was a long-forgotten figure whose tale could potentially alter our understanding of the origins of Christianity. The Gabriel Stone is the core of an astonishing discovery. A 2,000-year-old artifact holds secrets so powerful that they might shake the foundation of faith itself. The Gabriel Stone, unearthed in the Holy Land, is unlike anything archaeologists have seen before. The style of its painted rather than carved Hebrew text dates it to the 1st century BCE, decades before Jesus walked the earth. And at the center of its cryptic message is an angel. Gabriel, not just any angel, is the one who, in accordance with Christian tradition, informed Mary that she would give birth to Jesus. But on this stone, Gabriel isn't speaking to Mary. He's speaking to a prince of princes, a code name for a Messiah. He is giving him the order to rise after 3 days. Could it be Simon of Perea, a revolutionary leader who lived at the time? Simon claimed to be the chosen one, a savior destined to lead his people to freedom. However, the Romans killed him after a violent rebellion, leaving him to rot in the desert. His followers, however, didn't abandon hope. They believed he would rise again. The idea of a resurrecting Messiah isn't something most people associate with Judaism. In Jewish tradition, the Messiah is a victorious king, not a suffering servant. However, the Gabriel Stone presents an alternative narrative, that of a Messiah who endures suffering, dies, and rises again. The story bears a striking resemblance to the narrative of Jesus. Although scholars disagree, the possibility is both thrilling and unsettling. It suggests that the idea of a suffering, dying, and rising Savior didn't originate with Jesus. Instead, it may have been part of a broader cultural and theological shift happening in the region. This discovery challenges us to rethink the world Jesus was born into. 1st century Judea wasn't the tranquil land of shepherds and stars we hear about in Christmas carols. It was a place of political chaos, rebellion, and messianic fever. Messiahs were everywhere, rising up to challenge Roman rule and inspire hope among the oppressed. Most of them failed, their stories erased by history. The Gabriel Stone is a puzzle piece in a much larger story, one that connects archaeology, theology, and history in ways we're only beginning to understand. The Roman Empire held a brutal grip over Judea, crucifying anyone who dared to challenge their rule. Amid this turmoil, people clung desperately to the hope of a savior. Now picture this. A stone tablet is found, covered in ancient Hebrew writing, and it tells the story of a Messiah. But here's the chilling part. It's not Jesus. Remember to join our community by subscribing to this channel. This discovery isn't just about an old stone or lost history. It's about the Gabriel Stone, an artifact that forces us to question the very foundation of Christian theology. This 2,000-year-old tablet dates back to the 1st century BCE, decades before Jesus' crucifixion. On its surface, the angel Gabriel commands a Messiah to rise after 3 days. It's a statement that sounds eerily familiar to the Gospels, but it shakes up everything we thought we knew. To understand the significance of this stone, we need to go back to the world it came from. Judea in the 1st century BCE was a land boiling with unrest. Herod the Great ruled as a puppet king for Rome, hated by his people for his brutality and paranoia. He's infamous for ordering the massacre of the innocents, a slaughter of children to eliminate any threat to his throne. When Herod died in 4th BCE, his death ignited a storm of rebellion. Judea erupted into chaos, with uprisings breaking out across the region. 3 messianic leaders emerged from this turmoil, each claiming to be the savior who would deliver their people from Roman oppression. One of these leaders was Simon of Perea, a former slave who crowned himself king and led a revolt against the empire. But Simon's story ended in blood. The Romans hunted him down, decapitated him, and left his body to rot, denying him the dignity of burial. It seemed like the end. Yet, for his followers, it was only the beginning. They believed Simon would rise again, that his suffering and death weren't signs of failure, but proof of his divine mission. Written in Hebrew and painted in ink, the text on the tablet describes a Messiah who will rise after 3 days. Translated from the ancient script, the key line reads, "I, Gabriel, command you, the Prince of Princes, to live in 3 days." Using a method known as typology, scholars have dated the stone to the 1st century BCE based on the shape of its letters. The long-necked lamed and the square mem suggest that the inscription occurred shortly before the time of Jesus. If this dating is correct, it places the Gabriel Stone's message in the era of Simon of Perea. This connection has led some experts to suggest that Simon might be the Messiah the tablet refers to. But what's truly unsettling is the similarity between this message and the story of Jesus. Both stories feature a suffering, dying, and resurrected Messiah. Yet the Gabriel Stone's text predates the New Testament by at least 40 years. Could Simon's story have been the blueprint for Jesus? This discovery raises profound and unsettling questions. For centuries, Christians have believed in the unique divinity of Jesus, that his resurrection was a singular event proving he was the Son of God. But the Gabriel Stone suggests that the idea of a suffering, dying, and rising Messiah existed before Jesus. It wasn't exclusive to him. What if this cornerstone of Christian faith was part of a broader cultural and theological evolution shared among other messianic figures like Simon? If the resurrection story wasn't unique to Jesus, does it weaken the foundations of Christian belief? For devout Christians, this idea can feel like a threat, a challenge to the sacred narrative that has inspired billions. Yet for historians and theologians, it opens the door to a deeper understanding of how religious ideas develop over time. Could the resurrection story serve as a potent symbol that spans centuries, rather than being the exclusive assertion of a single figure? The Gabriel Stone also sheds light on a critical shift in Jewish theology during this period. Traditionally, people envisioned the Jewish Messiah as a victorious king, a descendant of David who would conquer enemies and establish God's kingdom on earth. But in the chaos of Roman occupation, a new idea began to emerge: the suffering Messiah. This figure wasn't a military leader, but a servant who bore the weight of his people's suffering, achieving redemption through sacrifice. Simon of Perea fits this mold. Though he died a brutal death, his followers reinterpreted his defeat as part of God's plan. They believed his suffering was essential to his role as the Messiah. This reimagining of the Messiah's purpose may have paved the way for Jesus' story decades later. The Gabriel Stone isn't just a random artifact. It's a rare find that combines archaeology, linguistics, and theology in one fascinating package. Made of limestone, the Gabriel Stone stands about 3 feet tall and 1 foot wide. Unlike most ancient inscriptions, it's not carved. Instead, its text is painted in ink, a method more common among the Dead Sea Scrolls than monumental tablets. The text itself is written in ancient Hebrew and structured into 2 neat columns, much like a modern-day newspaper. Archaeologists and linguists have analyzed the style of the letters, which offers crucial clues about the stone's age. By comparing its script to other known examples, experts date the Gabriel Stone to the late 1st century BCE, right before or around the time of Jesus' birth. But it's the message of the stone that sets it apart. The inscription describes a command from the angel Gabriel, who tells a prince of princes to live in 3 days. These words, steeped in theological symbolism, raise a profound question: who is this Prince of Princes? What does the stone's mention of the resurrection signify? For those who have studied it, the Gabriel Stone represents an early reference to the concept of a suffering and rising Messiah, a concept that seems eerily connected to the story of Jesus. People often perceive archaeology as a field that excavates the past to illuminate human history. More importantly, religious artifacts connect the physical and spiritual. In the case of the Gabriel Stone, archaeology provides a window into the beliefs, traditions, and struggles of people living in first-century Judea. By studying artifacts like this one, scholars uncover not just the events of the past, but the emotions, hopes, and fears of the people who lived it. For instance, the Gabriel Stone's resemblance to the Dead Sea Scrolls, ancient Jewish texts found near the Dead Sea, suggests it came from a similar cultural context. Both the scrolls and the stone feature suspended letters and ink-based writing, pointing to a tradition specific to that time and region. This isn't just a technical detail, it's a clue that links the stone to a particular community, possibly one that saw their Messiah in a different light, as someone whose suffering held redemptive power. For believers, the Gabriel Stone can feel like both a challenge and an affirmation. On one hand, it raises questions about the origins of Christian theology. If the idea of a suffering, dying, and resurrecting Messiah existed before Jesus, does it change his uniqueness? On the other hand, it shows that the hope of resurrection wasn't a new invention, but a deeply rooted idea in Jewish thought, one that found its fullest expression in Jesus. Are you enjoying the story? Support our channel by clicking the subscribe button. From an archaeological perspective, the stone is a piece of evidence, a snapshot of how beliefs evolved over time. It reveals that the concept of resurrection, far from being a sudden, isolated revelation, was part of a larger theological conversation happening in first-century Judea. This doesn't diminish the faith of billions. Instead, it enriches it by showing how deeply interconnected human history and divine inspiration can be. Of course, archaeology is rarely straightforward. The Gabriel Stone itself comes with unanswered questions. For starters, a controlled excavation did not find it. It surfaced on the antiquities market, making its precise origins uncertain. Without knowing exactly where it came from, scholars must rely on the stone's style, language, and material to piece together its story. This lack of context fuels debates over its interpretation. At its core, theology is the study of God, yet the context in which it develops also profoundly influences it. History, culture, and human experience serve as the foundation for the emergence of ideas about the divine. Inscribed in the 1st century BCE, the Gabriel Stone reflected a turbulent time. Judea was under Roman rule, and its people lived in fear and oppression. Messianic hope burned brightly in this environment, fueled by a longing for deliverance. Jewish tradition always envisioned the Messiah as a triumphant king, a descendant of David who would defeat Israel's enemies and restore God's kingdom on earth. But under the crushing weight of Roman occupation, a new idea began to emerge. What if the Messiah didn't come as a victorious warrior, but as a suffering servant? What if we could achieve redemption not through conquest, but through sacrifice? This shift didn't happen overnight, and it wasn't the work of one person. The hardships of the time shaped a collective imagination which produced this shift. The Gabriel Stone is a glimpse into this transition, showing how the concept of a suffering, dying, and rising Savior might have taken root before Jesus' arrival. One figure at the heart of this shift is Simon of Perea, a revolutionary leader who lived decades before Jesus. Simon declared himself the Messiah, leading a rebellion against Rome. His narrative depicts a tale of hope transforming into tragedy as he faced defeat, faced execution, and remained unburied, serving as a warning to others. Yet his followers didn't see his death as a failure. Instead, they reinterpreted it as part of God's divine plan. This reinterpretation reflects a powerful human instinct, the need to find meaning in suffering. For Simon's followers, his death wasn't the end of his mission. It was a step toward ultimate redemption, a narrative that gave them hope in the face of despair. This idea that suffering could be transformative may have laid the groundwork for the theological framework later adopted by Jesus' followers. The evolution of theological ideas, like those surrounding the Messiah, shows how much human influence plays a role in shaping faith. People don't just passively receive divine truths, they actively interpret, adapt, and build upon them. Each generation adds its own layer of understanding, influenced by the struggles and aspirations of their time. If you're enjoying uncovering the mysteries of the Gabriel Stone, please consider showing your support by clicking the Super Thanks button. By clicking, you're helping us continue to create thought-provoking content, delve deeper into history, and explore the powerful intersection of faith and archaeology. The Gabriel Stone exemplifies this process. It suggests that the belief in resurrection and salvation didn't start with Jesus, but was part of a larger, ongoing dialogue within Jewish theology. This doesn't diminish Jesus' significance. Rather, it highlights how his message resonated with a long-standing tradition. His followers took an existing idea, the suffering Savior, and brought it to new life, transforming it into the cornerstone of Christian faith. One of the most fascinating aspects of theology is its ability to adapt. When faced with crises or challenges, people reinterpret their beliefs to make sense of their experiences. Early Christians might have viewed Jesus' crucifixion as a devastating failure. After all, how could the Messiah die on a cross? But instead of abandoning their faith, they reimagined his death as the ultimate act of redemption. This process of reinterpretation isn't unique to Christianity. Throughout history, faith traditions have evolved in response to changing circumstances. The Gabriel Stone shows how this process was at work even before Jesus' time. The idea of a Messiah who suffers and rises wasn't a sudden revelation, but part of a gradual shift in Jewish thought, shaped by the collective hopes and fears of a people living under oppression. The Gabriel Stone story serves as a reminder that history is not static. It's an ongoing conversation, one that challenges us to rethink what we know and inspires us to keep searching for the truth. Whether through faith or archaeology, the journey continues. Along the way, we discover past secrets and the power of hope and belief. What other mysteries lurk beneath the sands, poised to reshape the narratives we perceive? We have yet to uncover the answers. We are still writing the greatest story of all. Thanks for watching. Join our community by subscribing to this channel. Until the next video.